Babylonian word for infant, and December 25th was called by the pagan Anglo-Saxons Yule Day, which is why you can still get cards that, say to have a blessed Yuletide. Celebrate Baal. I think I told you that I went in Target recently, and they had big banners because they don't want to say Merry Christmas because they don't want to offend anybody, and they've already chased away the Salvation Army Santas from all their stores. So they have big banners up now that say Happy Winter Solstice. And I thought, well, great, we've come full circle. At least they are admitting what it really is. White also writes that other false gods were born on December 25th. Included in this was Mithra. Now, you need to get to know this name, Mithra. Mithraism. Significantly, Mithra is the Roman sun god. The false worship of Mithra migrated to Rome from Pergamus. You may be familiar with Pergamus, Revelation 2, 12 to 13. Remember the Revelation studies? You read about Pergamus. What did I tell you Pergamy stands for? Anybody remember?
Purgatory sound.
It does. Well, and very similar root. What is monogamy? Married to one person. Yeah. What is polygamy? Polygamy. Many people you've married. Yeah. What is pergamy? Bad marriage. Pergamy, its name, Pergamus, has to do with the bad marriage of the Christian church with Roman paganism. That's the place where it got its greatest foothold and is known by the infamous name of Pergamy to this day. Christmas was not made official dogma of the Holy Roman Empire until 534 A.D. Now think about that for a moment. We as a nation are what, 200 years old? And how many changes have we gone through in 200 years? 500 years from the death and birth of Christ to the time that Christmas was first officially observed by the Roman Catholic Church. That's a long time. Jesus has been gone for 2,000 years. For the first quarter of that, Christmas was not considered an official observance of the birth of Christ. This is significant. There is nothing Christian about Christmas. Christmas was not celebrated by the early American Puritans, as I'll talk about in a moment, and was across the board denounced by American Calvinists who landed on the shores of the United States. Calvinism never embraced Christmas, but you can go to most Reformed Calvinistic churches today, and they'll have trees in their sanctuaries. A broad element of English Christianity still considers Christmas celebration to be a pagan blasphemy. The Puritans, the Baptists, the Quakers, the Presbyterians, the Calvinists, and other denominations brought this opposition to early New England, and strong opposition to the holiday lasted in America until the middle of the 18th century. Rick Meisel wrote that in his book, The Origins of Christmas, which came out in 1993. He recognizes that in early America, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, the Calvinists who landed here would not celebrate Christmas because they understood that it was pagan, and they wouldn't have it. In fact, Christmas was generally outlawed in America until the end of the last century. Up until 1870, the city of Boston proclaimed that anyone who missed work on Christmas Day would automatically be fired because they did not want you to observe that day. Now, no one works on Christmas. 1870. That's only, 130, 140 years ago that it was outlawed in America. Factory owners required employees to come to work at 5 a.m. on Christmas Day in order to ensure that they would not go to church that day. It's true. And any student who failed to go to school on December 25th was summarily expelled because they were trying very hard to keep Christmas from spreading. Alabama was the first state in the Union to recognize Christmas as a legal holiday, but that was late in the 19th century. So roll tide. So. The Babylonian connection. Let's talk about that. The winter solstice was also celebrated by the followers of Mithra as the nativity or the birth of the sun, S-U-N. Mithra was the Persian sun god, and his worship was widespread throughout the Roman Empire in the days of the early believers. When the feast was celebrated in Rome, it was called the Festival of Saturn, or the Saturnalia, and it lasted for 5 days. And it was celebrated during the shortest days, during the winter solstice, the shortest days of the year. In both ancient Rome and more ancient Babylon, this festival was characterized by bouts of drunkenness, wild merrymaking, and lascivious orgies, which would begin with an innocent kiss underneath mistletoe. Absolutely. And then would lead to the justification of all sorts of sexual excesses, perversions, and abominations. Alexander Hislop writes in his book, The Two Babylons, he writes, quote, "Indeed, it is admitted by the most learned and candid writers of all parties that the day of our Lord's birth cannot be determined exactly, and that within the Christian church no such festival as Christmas was ever heard of until the 3rd century, and that not till the 4th century was far advanced did it gain much observance at all. Long before the 4th century and long before the Christian era itself, a festival was celebrated among the heathen at that precise time of year in honor of the birth of the son of the Babylonian Queen of Heaven. And it may fairly be presumed that, in order to conciliate the heathen and to swell the number of nominal adherents to Christianity, that the same festival was adopted by the Roman Church, giving it only the name of Christ, the Christ Mass. This tendency on the part of Christians to meet paganism halfway was very early developed, and we find Tertullian, even in his day, about the year 230, bitterly lamenting the inconsistency of the disciples of Christ in this respect and contrasting it with the strict fidelity of the pagans to their own superstition. Do you understand the brilliance of what Hislop said there? He said the church, unfortunately, has a long history of being willing to meet pagans halfway in order to bring nominal adherents into the church. Not people who really genuinely believe or understand, but let's just get more bodies into the church by allowing them to keep whatever heathen customs they want to keep, but bring them in. Meanwhile, the heathens were much more likely to hold on to fastidiously every one of their beliefs and every one of their traditions. It was never the heathens who had to change to be part of the church. It was always the church that changed in order to accommodate the heathens. Still like that. Yeah, exactly right. James George Frazer wrote in his book, The Golden Bough, A Study in Magic and Religion, 1922, he wrote, "The largest pagan religious cult which fostered the celebration of December 25th as a holiday throughout the Roman and Greek worlds was the pagan sun worship, Mithraism." He adds, this winter festival was called the Nativity of the sun, the S-U-N. Mithra was not the only pagan deity that was said to be born at this time of year. Osiris, Horus, Hercules, Bacchus, Adonis, Jupiter, Tammuz, and all the other sun gods were supposedly born at the time of the winter solstice. Alexander Hislop, I'm going to quote again, says, "That Christmas was originally a pagan festival is beyond all doubt. The time of the year and the ceremonies with which it is still celebrated prove its origin. In Egypt, the son of Isis, the Egyptian title for the Queen of Heaven, was born at this very time. The ancient books read about the time of the winter solstice for his birthday. The very name by which Christmas is popularly known among ourselves, the Yule Day, proves at once its pagan and Babylonish origin. Yule is the Chaldee name for an infant or a little child, and as the 25th of December was called by our pagan Anglo-Saxon ancestors the Yule Day or the Child's Day, and the night that preceded it was called Mother's Night, all these things occurred long before they came in contact with Christianity, and that sufficiently proves its real character. Far and wide, in the realms of paganism, it was the birthday that was observed for the sun god. So what do we all do? Keep that name Christ Mass, and then observe all the same old pagan stuff, and just say, but it's really Christian. It frustrates me when I hear